Hi everyone, I am Francelis. I also use the tag That Conscious Gal, and um, I honestly have been having a lot of resistance to doing these kinds of videos, but I feel like I need to do a few channeled messages and just get the conversation going in terms of how to handle the this global situation with the pandemic, um, on the spiritual level. And quite frankly, this has been a challenge for me as well, even though I had a pretty stable spiritual practice beforehand. But um, I've been learning a lot about myself as well. And a good friend brought up to me a question today. Um, where did I put it? She said, "How do we handle all the things that are going on the spiritual level?" So I am going to um, center myself and then come back to you with hopefully some answers. Okay, so let's take it back a little bit and talk about our energy. Now, one of the main things that we need to know is that our thoughts are energy. If anything has come up for us to learn on a global scale, is that we're all connected. Now, this doesn't mean that we are responsible for another individual's actions. In the way that we're energetically connected, it's just that we are affected by the actions of others, and there's like a flow and a give in the sense of thoughts and the way energy moves throughout the planet. So when we start realizing these things, that our thoughts are energy, that everything exists twice, first as a thought and then as a physical manifestation. So when something like this is happening, it can be very marked what we are tuning into. So if we are tuning into propaganda, fear energies, anger, these things tend to grow exponentially. So right now, the world is sort of teeter-tottering between positivity and negativity, correct? So if we become more conscious of what we're tuning into, we have the capability of changing the dynamic around us, around our loved ones, and for eventually globally. So right now there is a huge energy of fear. A big fear has come up for the collective of the planet about death, the potential for death. And if you notice, the prospect of a virus that can kill us or our loved ones is the ultimate fear, because there's a sense of a loss of control. People are literally losing control by losing their jobs or their health care or their family members. So we have a lot that we're grappling with right now. And although to me, it looks like upheaval and chaos, but it is also a magnificent shift, I feel. We tend to resist change. We tend to resist stepping up to our greatness. I know I have. um, so humanity as a whole right now is being asked to switch focus, and regardless of what may be going on out there, we need to start inside and work our way out. See, we do nothing by informing ourselves of what's going on out there. Yes, there are some things that are relevant. For example, if your local ordinance is saying don't go outside, and you go outside and then you get fined, or whatever may happen, then that's something that's relevant to you. However, on the grand scale of things, the greatest effect that you can have on the world and what's going on right now is when you sort of get your house in order, and your house meaning yourself, your temple, your mind, your spirit. And this is about people coming into alignment with themselves. So the question was, how do we deal with this on a spiritual level? Well, on the spiritual level, first we need to understand that we are very, very large beings. We are a large existence that has a body, and we are also connected to all that is. So, in essence, you are God, or whatever you choose to call it. You're a speck of the universe. And so when we start to zoom out and we look at the big picture and what we have co-created, then you start to understand that there's no accidents, that this is for our growth and our expansion, and that we are being called to serve the greater good, to serve the collective, to serve the universe. Because every time that we personally cause a shift, we are also causing a shift in the larger collective. And if you really think about it, it's very magical. And it's actually making me happy to talk about this. But there's no accident that you're here. There's no accident of what's going on. There is no accident of lives lost or impacted, if we are looking at it from a very, very wide lens. Okay, and that's spiritually, that's how we can learn to deal with this in a more holistic way. And the Buddhists and the Taoists were onto something by making acceptance a central part of their practice. So when you're looking at the big picture and you realize there's no accidents, then you begin to be able to practice acceptance. And I feel like the way the growth comes is, first we are panicked, and that's our ego. Our ego is saying things are not supposed to change, we're in danger. Then we get to anger, and we slowly start moving up the scale of emotions until we can extract ourselves from the physical reality to be able to look at what is going on in essence. So this is really a big shift. Anytime there's a big shift in humanity, we go through a period of expansion, of pain and turmoil sometimes, because we see change as painful. and then we get to this next level of the way that we exist in the world and the way we operate. So if you really look at it, no matter what's going on politically, scientifically, all the conspiracy theories, we need to center ourselves back and then look at what's relevant to us and to our families, and then go from there. If, for example, you come across a conspiracy theory, could it be relevant to you? Yes. Can you do something about it? No. So then we practice acceptance once again. So then we wonder, the next part of the question is, what happens when we are forced to do something such as a vaccine, or forced to wear masks, or forced to stay home? What we need to understand is that although we are physical beings, we are also sovereign spiritual beings. And fighting against something never has resolved the problem. What resolves problems for us is actually working towards a solution. So when you think in terms of vaccines, this is not to say do a vaccine or don't do a vaccine. This is not to say that you shouldn't do it. Looking at being forced to have a vaccine is, it can be viewed as giving your rights away if you're forced. It can be viewed as an assault on your individuality. However, what spirituality teaches us is that nothing can affect us unless we allow it. So when we buy into certain things, if we buy into, for example, referring back to how energy works, when we bind ourselves to a group or a thought form that says vaccines are bad for us, and you begin fighting that, then that creates strife for that collective, right? Because you're fighting against something that you're being told to do. And it's sort of like a teenager when they fight because you take away their cell phone, it doesn't really turn out well for them. So if you can see it that way, when you attach yourself to a certain thought form or thought group, then things will be affected the way that thought form expects, the way that thought form attracts. So it's kind of like Law of Attraction 101 when we think in terms of energy. Same as like if you're watching a horror movie, let's say, and you have nightmares that night. It's because you've bought into that thought form and that collective. And a lot of times you can even feel the thought forms created not only by the people who are creating the content, but the ones experiencing it as well. So you're sort of bought into that collective and it becomes part of your energy field. So same with the example of being forced to have a vaccine. Nothing can affect you unless you allow it. So we actually are being, I almost feel afraid to say this, but we are being forced to accept our sovereignty, our spiritual sovereignty. And we actually have the power to self-heal. We have the power to transmute energies. This is not a one-off thing. We all have access to these divine gifts if we tune into them. So you can actually transmute the agents of a vaccine in your body. So the issue of having a problem with the example of being given a vaccine is a political one. Okay? So again, go back into yourself and find your center, because this is where you find peace and certainty. And I feel guided for us to do that right now. So I'm going to ask you watching to close your eyes and take a deep breath. And if it helps, put your hands to your chest. I want you to feel, see, hear, or sense a cloud, a ball of white golden light in your chest. And just feel into that. Feel into that. This is you. This is you. You are a divine being. You are sovereign. This is a launch pad. And from now on, you get to carefully decide what sort of thought forms you buy into. You get to decide, do you want stress or peace or anxiety or love or joy? In each moment, you decide what your experience is going to be. Right now, you can release all that is not serving your highest good. Release. Deep breath and center. Deep breath and center. I thank you for watching. I know there's a lot more up for discussion, and I hope this has helped you in some way, or that it made sense. Quite honestly, I haven't channeled in a few weeks, so I might be a little rusty. And I love you, and I send you peace.